Hello and welcome back to Dominion Seaside 2nd Edition previews. We are on day 3, and this is the final day of seeing new cards. Donald X did mention things got errata and that he was going to show that off as well, but I think there's actually the information is actually all here today, so I think I can just cover that stuff in this video rather than having it be tomorrow, which is what I was originally thinking was going to be the case, or maybe I just wouldn't cover it. So yeah, good. That's good. Get all the information right now. So let's talk about the new cards first, of course, starting with Explorer turning into Pirate. So Donald X says, Explorer is fine. It's been complained about a lot over the years, but, well, really it's not so bad. It was borderline. It was a borderline. It was a contender for going, and then I wanted to add Pirate, which is similar, so out with Explorer. Yeah, Explorer is not one of the cards that I expected to get cut. I'll get into some more thoughts on like the overall cards that got cut. Now that we're going to know once we get through this all the cards that got cut and didn't get cut later. So I'll once I get through the new cards, talk about that. But my thoughts on that. But yeah, I will say Explorer was not one of the ones that I originally expected to get cut. And knowing how much the durations have increased in this set, it's less surprising. And it was definitely one of the cards that was like on the bubble of like it definitely could get cut. But I was leaning towards it would stay in personally. Anyway, so new card Pirate at the start of your next turn. Gain a treasure costing up to 6 to your hand. When any player gains a treasure, you may play this from your hand. Okay, so you know, pretty reminiscent of Falconer. Obviously, you know, a more narrow scope, but with the treasure focus, the advantage relative to Falconer is that you can gain a more expensive card, which, I mean, how often gold is going to be better than like whatever, the best 4 cost that, you want might be debatable. But it is notable that like probably generally easier to activate the reaction condition on Pirate than Falconer, I would say. It's a little hard. I mean, it's going to be very dependent on the board, of course. Like, there are boards where you just don't gain treasures. There are boards that don't have, multi-types. So it's hard to say for sure. But I think it'll be a little bit easier to activate that condition. Your pirates can also react to each other, although the timing on it is not... Like, with Falconer, you can kind of chain all your Falconers. Like, if you have a way to activate one of your, if you can use one Falconer to activate basically all the rest of the Falconers in your hand, and you get the benefit from that immediately. Pirate doesn't work that way because of the duration, like where it's at the start of your next turn. So if you are reacting, you're gonna get it into play and then get the treasure next turn rather than immediately. So it is slow that way relative to Falconer. It does go into your hand like with Falconer, but it is slow. And that does seem problematic. Falconer is I would say overall a pretty good card, not an amazing card. It's often worth getting. It's on the expensive side as gainers go for sure, because it's competing in the 5 cost slot, but like the flexibility that it offers is often nice, and sometimes that's the only gainer that you have available, or at least like during your turn gainer, as opposed to, you know, your buy phase. With pirate, you know, the fact that it's as slow as it is, I'm kind of thinking it's maybe this actually is going to be like a money card. Because if you're playing a money deck, you don't probably care as much about the fact that it stays out, because you're not expecting to like go through your whole deck anyway. And it's not totally obvious to me whether a money deck would prefer, like, supposing that you see, you know, over your shuffle, you see your pirate, you know, and then you see it on turn 1, and then you get the treasure on turn 2, and then you shuffle, and so the pirate gets into your shuffle. So assuming it, like, the duration effect doesn't cause it to miss the shuffle, it's not clear to me for like a money deck whether the fact that it's a duration effect is good or not, because it's like, it's a more spiky way of having your money. Like if you just played the pirate and gained a gold to your hand, then it would essentially be a terminal gold. As it is, it's doing nothing on the turn you play it. It's reducing your hand size, but then on the next turn, it's increasing your hand size. And so that's like a more spiky way of distributing your money, as opposed to a smoother way of distributing your money, which I think in general is probably bad for money, but I'm not totally sure about that. You know, if you're actually building a deck that's, you know, gonna, like, it's an actual engine, it's gonna draw and all that, I think the duration is definitely a downside. So yeah, I don't think this card is terribly strong. Ideally, I mean, if you do get to react to your opponent playing it, then essentially it becomes not a duration, right? So it may be that the best case scenario for it is one where you can, like, be fairly confident that your opponent is going to be gaining treasures, which I suppose there's a certain sort of self synergy there, where if pirate is good, then pirate is better, because your opponent plays a pirate, they gain a treasure on their turn, you react with your pirate, and now you can get it into play faster. Conversely, though, if you're not mirroring and your opponent is playing like a low, you know, treasure deck, they're not going to be doing anything to help you activate your pirate. It would, you know, at least alleviate terminal space issues if you have some way of activating the pirate yourself, you know, whether that's some other gainer or another pirate, but it's not nearly as strong as being able to play it faster. So yeah, I kind of lead towards this being on the weaker side. It's not even clear to me that it's better than Explorer. Like, Explorer can also gain golds. It is, of course, notable that Pirate can gain, you know, treasures other than silver and gold. On some boards, that will definitely be relevant. It can't gain platinum, which is pretty sad. You wouldn't really generally use it to gain counterfeit. You could use it to gain crowns, though. That's pretty good. Capital, yeah, I mean, if you're gonna, I don't think you would get pirate just to get capital, but I could see getting it because you want some treasure, and then, like, okay, well, capital, you know, I want some capital. I could definitely see getting it to get crowns. Stockpile, probably easier to just buy the stockpiles. I don't really think that would come up too much. You know, same thing with some of the cheaper treasures. Like, I don't think you're going to get this to get, like, Coin of the Realm or Ducat or Quarry or Talisman or, like, anything like that, really. Spices? Maybe. I could see that. I mean, the problem with that is it's anti-tempo. Usually the point of getting the spices is like you want the coffers, and you want the coffers now rather than later. And if you get a pirate, like instead of having the coffers now, you have to get the pirate into your shuffle. You have to draw it, you have to play it, and then the turn after that, you finally get your spices. So that's probably not good unless, I don't know, unless you have a way to like rapidly get thin, and you're going to be able to use like a couple of pirates to get a lot of spices quickly, where you wouldn't otherwise be able to. I don't know. It probably doesn't really work. I'm trying to think of other good 5-cost treasures, kind of drawing a blank. Like, you know, obviously you're not going to care about like Contraband or Royal Seal or Stash. So yeah, Crown is really the one that jumps out at me. But maybe there's some other things as well. Like, you're not going to do it to get Hoard, because you don't need that many hoards. You don't need that many treasure troves. Maybe Harem, I guess. That could be okay. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it seems... It doesn't seem obviously better than Explorer to me. Maybe it is. Though, I mean, it's a little hard to evaluate. Like, we've never had this reaction condition, so it's a little hard for me to evaluate, like, how often is that actually going to trigger? And are people going to be able to play around it? All right. So, pretty interesting card, though. I will say that much. I don't necessarily think it's strong, but I definitely think it's interesting. Next up, we've got Pirate Ship leaving. I don't think this is at all a surprise, except insofar as there were some questions about, like, you know, would we get rid of the entire triptych or, you know, keep the entire triptych? Well, it turns out we are getting rid of exactly one card from the triptych. Sorry, Pirate Ship, but you are a bad card. And we are replacing it with Corsair, +2 coins. At the start of your next turn, +1 card. Until then, each other player trashes the first silver or gold they play each turn. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, that has some similarities in very rough terms to Pirate Ship. Oh, I guess I should see what Donald X had to say about it as well. Pirate Ship for years has been one of the very weakest cards in the game. At the same time, it terrifies casual multiplayer groups, where everyone buys it and so someone who bought it wins. It also requires tokens for, again, just a single card in the expansion. Felt like some people would be sad to have no piratey, shippy thing, so there's Corsair. It attacks treasures in a way that doesn't help your opponents. Okay. And this is a 5-cost. It's getting you 2 coins, and then at the start of your next turn, +1 card. The start of your next turn, +1 card thing feels very much like a balance thing that is... It doesn't feel especially elegant to me. It feels like the sort of thing you do for balance, where like the card, you know, has a design and then you're like, it needs to be stronger. Let's do this to make it stronger. And I'm not super keen on the way that is cashed out here. Like, it just doesn't really fit with, I feel like, what the card is like trying to do design wise. And I mean, there's almost no cards in Dominion that I can think of that I've had this reaction to, but this one, that +1 card feels very strange to me. Nonetheless, it does at least mean that, you know, this card is like sort of net neutral draw. Obviously, you know, there's lots of caveats that you can throw into that, but in some sense it is net neutral draw. So that does help it out, as considering it is a terminal silver that you can only play every other turn. And then, yeah, the attack part, I don't know. My first reaction here is, would it have been so bad to have it say each other player trashes the first non-copper treasure they play each turn? Because that, like, in general, it would be a really hard counter to crown, but most other treasures, you could just not play the good one first, and like you'd still. I mean, I guess the problem with saying first non-copper treasure is if you have like 7 coppers in a bank, you have to trash your bank. That is pretty brutal. Maybe that's too brutal. Okay, I could see that. It's just the fact that it's specifically silver or gold makes me feel like there's going to be a lot of boards where it's not very relevant. Because there's a lot of boards where, you know, if you're playing some kind of engine, you're either not playing with much in the way of treasure. Maybe you're keeping around your coppers, but you're not accumulating much silver or gold. Or if you are playing around with treasure, you're getting, you know, some value from some kingdom treasures. So I mean, I could definitely see this hurting on some boards, and in fact, this could actually be a decent card in an engine as a counter to like a certain type of money deck. I mean, you can imagine that if you're playing against a money deck with like Treasure Trove in it, for example, if you're trashing the golds as you're gaining them, then like suddenly, you know, or one with Horde, something like that. If you're trashing those golds like as they come in, they're going out at the same rate that they come in, then instead of like being able to maintain money density through the greening phase, you are instead like bleeding it the way you would if you didn't have the treasure gainer. And like, or, you know, I mean, it's rare for a money deck to even look viable against like some kind of engine when there isn't some kind of enabler like that. But if there isn't one, and you're just buying the treasures normally, and then, you know, greening with just what you've got, like this thing is gonna just like potentially really shut you down. It is notable that this doesn't stack. I think that's good. So you're only gonna, you know, be able to hurt them a little bit like per turn. But if you have a pair of these, you could do some good damage to a money deck for sure. You can also, well, no, that's not true actually. I was gonna say you could do some damage to a deck that is like using a gold gainer to feed like a remodel, but that's actually not the case. If if you're gaining golds and then you are, you know, trashing them with Apprentice or remodeling them into Province or whatever, it's not going to affect you. So yeah, this is probably mostly pushing, punishing money decks more so than anything else, which feels a little like kicking somebody when they're down, but as Donald Duck said, you know, he wanted a pirate shippy thing, and this definitely like feels like a pirate shippy thing. You know, in kind of the same way that like Bandit does. All right, let's look at the last card. So Ambassador, goodbye Ambassador. And hello Sailor. That was unintentional. Ambassador, it's such a classical Dominion card. At first it just looks silly. Later you find out it's a powerhouse. It's not necessarily a problem in 2-player, that you get a sub game of trashing down with an Ambassador before you get to the main game after that, but in multiplayer it can just shut you out. As with Ghost Ship, you don't get to see your deck. Sailor is unrelated other than also covering trashing. It's a duration card that ties into duration cards by letting them leap into play, and if there aren't any other ones on the board, well, it can work with another Sailor. Okay, so +1 action. Once this turn, when you gain a duration card, you may play it. Oh, so it's like a kind of mini innovation-y thing. At the start of your next turn, +2 coins, and you may trash a card from your hand. That is it's interesting that those are just two like completely different, unrelated things. So if this is the only trashing, it's certainly going to be slow. Although, no, the order on that's wrong. Well, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about, okay, what happens, you get a sailor in the open and you play it, and then you buy another sailor. You do get to play that one as well. But, you aren't, like, you're going to get then 2 trashes the next turn at the start of your turn, which may be a little bit awkward. Probably not in the opening, but, like, subsequently, like, having those trashes at the start of your turn can be awkward. So yeah, I think in general, this is going to be quite slow as the only trashing. It is non-terminal, which helps. The gain and play on the durations, that's tough to evaluate. Oh, it does, the +2 coins, it's also may trash, so, it keeps working. The +2 coins, though, it does mean that if you do what I was saying, like, you get a sailor, although it's potentially hard to hit 4 with the turn you're playing a sailor, because it doesn't really do anything. But if you can buy a sailor, like, in your opening, play it and get another one, and then get that one into play too, even though you're trashing 2 cards and you don't have much of a hand, you've got 4 duration coins. So actually you're fine. You're probably hitting 5 at that point. In fact, you're probably guaranteed to hit 5. You can do that. So that's actually pretty nice. The problem is, like, actually hitting 4. Right? It's like you get 2... If you open, like, Sailor's Silver, how likely are you to hit 4 if you play it on turn 3 or turn 4? I mean, I guess you'd prefer to play it on turn 3, of course, but, whichever. Let's say on turn 3, that'll keep things simpler. So you'll have 9 coins in your deck and 12 cards. And let's see. So, I mean, I'm sure somebody has done this math before. You take, like, a card that doesn't generate any econ and then a silver, and see, like, what are your odds to hit, 4 and 5 and all the rest of it. A lookout silver or whatever. Although lookout has other complexities, but yeah, I don't actually know what the odds are. But if you can hit 4, then it's really nice. You get the next turn, you're going to hit 5. You're going to get 2 trashes in, which is, as good as what you'd have gotten out of, like, Steward. So, I mean, you have to get it turn 3 for it to be as good, because otherwise your sailors are missing the shuffle. But I could definitely see that being a thing. Yeah, so going to the playing durations when you gain them thing. I mean, it's certainly a nice effect when it's relevant. I don't know how often durations show up and how often you want them. I feel like it is often the case that durations are cards that you don't want a lot of. I'm trying to remember, did I talk about this with some of the previews yesterday? I think I might have with C chart. Yeah, I think I did. So I won't go into detail on that again. But suffice it to say that there's going to be a fair number of times when, you get a couple cards into play, and then after that it's not really doing anything. You're probably still going to get Sailor if it's the trashing. And it's cool that, like, the first time you get, I don't know, well, actually, let me revise that a little bit, because the fact that Sailor gets the card into play changes the calculus of how many of them you want. Right? In the same way that innovation can do. Because the one that you're gaining is effectively non-terminal for a little while. So like, for instance, if you're playing on a board with limited terminal space and Haunted Woods, you can't just gain as many as you want, but Sailor does sort of give you this opportunity to like get some extra Haunted Woods in play, like for a while. I'm not sure how much sense that makes. Like if you literally have no terminal space, like you're just doing single terminal stuff, like you can buy them for a while as a sort of like variant on Expedition, and then at some point your deck has a bunch of Haunted Woods in it that you can't play, although you could trash them with the Sailor too. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I said, I guess it could be an Expedition variant of sorts. But yeah, obviously better with cards like Caravan and Wharf and things like that you're going to want to spam. Yeah, really interesting card. I don't think we've had any other cards other than no, never mind. C chart doesn't explicitly call out durations. I think this is the first card that is conditional on durations in a positive way rather than a negative way. It's like we've had cards that say like, you know, non-duration, you know, do whatever with a non-duration card. I don't think we've had anything that said do something with a duration card. Which is interesting just in the context that like the number of durations in the card pool, you know, dwindled a lot between the release of the original Seaside and the release of Adventures when they started to be brought back, because there were no durations in the intervening expansions. And I mean, obviously we know already that there can be durations in whatever expansion going forward. So that's not like a surprise, but it is notable that there how do I say this? There's a difference between durations can be made, and in some sense durations need to be made for this card to continue being relevant. Like how many durations, like what proportion of durations you need for this card to like maintain relevance, I don't really know, and I don't know if that's really going to be a focus of design going forward, but like at least in theory that could be a consideration, which is just kind of interesting. And it will be more of a consideration if more cards that have conditionals like this get added in the future. So yeah, that'll be interesting to check out. All right, so let's get into some errata stuff. I don't know if this image is going to show up well. Oh, that's the wrong image. Hold on. Okay, I don't know if this is going to be legible or not. Like this is the resolution of the image that DownloadX provided. So hopefully it is. If it's not, sorry. But this is the entirety of Seaside. DownloadX says, but wait, there's more. A few cards got errata. My philosophy has shifted on while in play. Now I think it's way more confusing than this turn. Yeah, this was something we kind of already knew was coming, but for some years there, I thought the opposite. Let's hope I don't reverse again there. So Lighthouse has a different phrasing to get rid of while in play, and then Treasury wanted to not be in the tiny font if possible, and it was possible. Here's the whole set with all current wordings / images, only small. I know what you're thinking. What about Lookout and Merchant Ship? Well, I was only thinking that about Merchant Ship, but I always thought casual players hated Lookout, but when I actually pulled some, they didn't. Cool, because I think Lookout is a perfectly good card and I didn't want it to go. And they absolutely loved Merchant Ship, even though for experts it was a shoo-in to go, one of the first cards any of them would think of replacing. Yes, it was. And then I had a new Explorer too. So Lookout and Merchant Ship survived. Secret history. If I'd replaced Lookout, it would have been with Sentinel. Huh. Yeah, that makes sense. And whatever else you want to ask about probably has a similar story. I got to replace 9 cards, counting blanks. Some work went into those choices. Lots of people weighed in, and I playtested the remove cards too, for just how replace-worthy they were. There you have it, Seaside 2E. I hope you like it. I'll have a little more to say about the cards in the Secret History, and somehow Prosperity 2E will follow just a few weeks after Seaside 2E. There is no more precise date yet. Okay? Wow. A few weeks. Dang. That's crazy. Alright. Let's see if there's anything we can pick out here. So Lighthouse now says, at the start of your next turn, +1 coin until then, when another player plays an attack. It doesn't affect you. Makes sense. What did he say about Treasury? Oh, Treasury wanted to not be in tiny font. I don't know if that means it actually got a rewording, or if it just means that the card text was, like, reformatted. At the end of your buy phase this turn, if you didn't gain a victory card in it, you may put this onto your deck. I thought it was a buy before, not a gain. Let me see if I can confirm that. Yep. So before it said, when you discard this from play, if you didn't buy a victory card this turn, you may put this onto your deck. And now it says, at the end of your buy phase this turn, if you didn't gain a victory card in it, you may put this onto your deck. Okay, so it is still during the buy phase, but it doesn't. You don't have to buy it. So if you dominate, you don't get to top deck your treasuries. If you triumph, you don't get to top deck your treasuries. But if you know, like artisan for a duchy or whatever, you still get to top deck your treasuries. So that's consistent with where this stuff has been moving. What else? Maybe nothing else? I don't see anything else that's jumping out at me as different. So I just want to talk a little bit about what I think about, the cards that were removed and the cards that weren't. I understand why Ghost Ship and Ambassador and Sea Hag were removed. I wouldn't have removed any of them, although I would have had a tough time removing the number of cards Donald X needed to remove in the first place. I would like, my approach to that would have been a lot more conservative to begin with. I don't mind there being some weak cards in the pool. I didn't mind the existence of the strong cards either, Ambassador and Ghost Ship, but Merchant Ship is definitely the one that jumps out at me as like, man, this if we were gonna do this card should have gone. And looking at like some of these cards, I'm a little surprised they didn't sort of take over Merchant Ship's slot. Corsair is a duration that gives coins, although it only gives them on the turn you play it. And Sailor gives you coins on the duration turn. Neither of them give you the coins both turns, but that's, kind of what I'm looking at and thinking that, maybe the players who enjoy Merchant Ship could have gotten some of what they wanted there with those cards. Yeah, like I said, I'm quite happy that Lookout stayed. I had thought that Treasure Map was fairly likely to get cut, but I am not unhappy that it stayed. Like Merchant Ship, I do think should have gone, and I think it's a missed opportunity because it is a weak card and it's not an interesting card. Like the most interesting case for it is things like there's I don't know, Bandit Fort, and there's DTX, and there's Capitalism, like, I don't know, stuff like that. And then it's like, yeah, it's virtual payload, okay, but it's not like exciting. Treasure Map, on the other hand, is definitely a niche card, and it's not good, but when it is relevant, it's a lot more exciting. It's fun to find uses for it in a way that I think greatly surpasses the fun of finding use cases for merchant ships. So that is one I'm definitely glad hung around. Pirate Ship, I think, was definitely a card that ought to have gone, and it did, so no complaints there. Explorer, I didn't think needed to be cut, but I don't mind it being cut. I think the replacement might not end up being too much stronger, but we'll see. But it's Explorer has been done better, arguably, in other cards anyway. So not even talking about Pirate, just there's other like gain to hand cards that I think are better and more interesting. So that's not a big loss. Pearl Diver, slam dunk, no question that was going to go. Navigator, same thing. That was, I guess I do actually probably think Navigator was a more interesting card than Merchant Ship, but it still seemed like a slam dunk to replace. Embargo is a card that I was not necessarily like hoping to see replaced, but I was very much expecting it to be replaced. And Blockade is probably a more interesting form of Embargo anyway. So I think I'm fine with that one. The blanks getting replaced obviously is completely fine. That's, like I said, free real estate. Ghost Ship, I've already said. Ghost Ship, Sea Hag, Ambassador, all of those I've already said. I don't think those needed to be replaced. And I actually think, in particular, Sea Hag into Sea Witch is something of a downgrade for variety, because Sea Witch is more similar to Witch, and the decision making around it is going to be more similar to Witch. Whereas Sea Hag was like in a fairly unique place in the game. So not I don't dislike Sea Witch as a card. In fact, I think it's probably going to be quite interesting. I just think that Sea Hag is like occupying a valid space in the card pool that now doesn't really have anything there. And so overall, I kind of actually lean towards Sea Hag as being the better card to have in the card pool, which I'm guessing a lot of people would disagree, but there you have it. And then Ambassador, I don't know. I guess I don't mind the Ambassador thing. Maybe that is, as Amalvek said, maybe that is a lot about the number of players, like the fact that I only play 2-player. But it's a way to get thin. It's the return mechanic is not totally unique to Ambassador, but it's rare. And the especially having it be sort of unconditional. You can return, I mean, it's not totally unconditional because you can't return things that are unreturnable, but there's not any other conditions on it, like relative to Way of the Horse, where you can return actions but not treasures or something, or same thing with Way of the Butterfly. Cards like Experiment and Horse, which return themselves, obviously don't return anything else. So again, Ambassador is doing something that's pretty unique. So I like that. Sailor is also doing something that's pretty unique, so that'll definitely be fun to play with. Though Sailor doesn't really seem like a direct replacement for Ambassador anyway, for the most part. But certainly not like Sea Witch is for Sea Hag. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think there's no question that this is going to be an upgrade, because even if there are several cards that I would have been perfectly happy to retain, there's a bunch of other cards that were not very compelling, and we've replaced them with cards that are more compelling with, more modern designs. So, that's one factor. Another factor is just, there's more, new stuff. New stuff is shiny and exciting, and the other cards do still exist in their physical form, and you can play them with them on the client, although you cannot roll them in random kingdoms, even unrated. There's not an option for that, so you have to specifically include them. But you can do it. So if you want to play with those cards, that option does exist. It may not exist in exactly the way that you might want if you're I just want to play ladder games with Pirate Ship or whatever, but it is possible to play with Pirate Ship still. So yeah, I mean, overall, it definitely seems like an upgrade. I haven't actually played with any of the cards yet. I haven't had the chance, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think, they pretty much all look interesting to me. The only thing is that I think Tide Pools looks really weak to me, and I'm concerned that I'm gonna very rarely pick it up, and so there's not gonna be much of the experience of actually playing with it in effect. But we'll see. Maybe my evaluation is wrong there. Anyway, all right, that has definitely been enough rambling. Thank you for watching, and I guess this will do it for now. We'll have Prosperity 2nd edition stuff coming up at some point, and I will certainly be doing some videos about that, as well as my final match in the Allies Mix Pools round this weekend. So until then.